This is called The Book of Pigericks by Arnold Lobel. Pigericks is a name that Arnold Lobel made up to talk about pig limericks. This is how limericks work. A girl from the village of Holly grew up both serious and jolly. She worked hard as a rule, always did well in school, and serves in Congress, by golly. Here's another one. Two children from Paris have a hamster named Harris, who spits fava beans and black jelly beans, an expert at how to embarrass. Another one. A boy from West Orange, New Jersey, had a teddy bear, both shaggy and furzy. Each night the two cuddled until the covers were muddled, and the boy had to shout, "Show mercy." Silly made-up words there. So the pattern is tree, free, daisy, lazy, bee. 3 of the lines rhyme, 2 of the lines rhyme. And that final line can be repeated. There was an old pig with a pen who wrote stories and verse now and then. To enhance these creations, he drew illustrations with brushes, some paints, and his pen. And the pig in this picture looks very much like Arnold Lobel. There was a young pig whose delight was to follow the moths in their flight. He entrapped them in nets, then admired his pets as they danced on the ceiling at night. There was a sad pig with a tail not curly but straight as a nail. So he ate simply oodles of pretzels and noodles, which put a fine twist to his tail. There was a young pig from Nantucket who went far out to sea in a bucket. There she met a large fish, who said, "Pig is my dish." So she sailed swiftly back to Nantucket. There was a warm pig from Key West. Of sandcastles, his was the best. But as soon as he built it, a wave came to tilt it, which dampened the pig from Key West. There was a cold pig from North Stowe, who despised winter weather and snow. 16 coats never warmed him, they only deformed him, that frigid, cold pig from North Stowe. So now we go from Vermont to California. There was an old pig from Van Nuys. In the window she cooled cherry pies, but the fruit of her labors was eaten by neighbors who came for dessert in Van Nuys. There was a vague pig from Glen Falls who had lost all his windows and walls. While in search of his floor, he misplaced his front door. That forgetful, vague pig from Glen Falls. There was a poor pig on the street. In the trash he found tidbits to eat. Though his hot garbage stew smelled exactly like glue, he declared that its taste was a treat. There was a rich pig from Palm Springs who had passions for bracelets and rings. He displayed his collection around his midsection by means of strong wires and strings. Arnold Lobel was from Schenectady, New York. There was a young pig from Schenectady who cried, "What is wrong with my neck today? At 10 minutes to 2, it just sprouted and grew. Now I'm taller than all of Schenectady." There was an old pig from South Goshen who awoke to a noisy commotion. There were 10 gambling mice playing poker and dice on his eiderdown quilt in South Goshen. There was a loud pig from West Wheeling who sang with expression and feeling, but her voice, in its shrillness, could shatter the stillness and all of the glass in West Wheeling. There was a rude pig from Duluth, whose manners were clearly uncouth, for he emptied his cup from a terrace high up, dropping showers of soup on Duluth. There was a young pig from Chanute, who could pipe little songs on a flute. When she practiced her scales, a large crowd of snails came to listen, enwrapped in Chanute. There was an old pig with a clock who experienced anguish and shock, for he greased it with butter, which caused it to sputter, and drowned both its tick and its tock. There was an old pig from New York who dined without knife, spoon, or fork. Each time he ate peas, they rolled down to his knees. That pea-splattered pig from New York. There was a shy pig by a wall who was frightened when guests came to call. At the sound of their chatter, his shape became flatter, until he was not there at all. There was a plain pig, far from pretty, who was given to gloom and self-pity. But, concealing her face under curtains of lace, she then merrily strolled through the city. There was a fair pig from Cohoes who desired to smell like a rose. She sprayed on some scent, but became discontent when a honey-bee perched on her nose. There was a young pig who, in bed, nightly slumbered with eggs on his head. When the sun at its rise made him open his eyes, he enjoyed a quick breakfast in bed. There was a wet pig from Fort Wayne who was suddenly caught in the rain. His suspenders and belt were the sort that would melt, so his trousers were swept down the drain. There was a small pig who wept tears when his mother said, "I'll wash your ears." As she poured on the soap, he cried, "Oh, how I hope this won't happen again for 10 years." There was a fast pig from East Flushing. To wherever he went, he was rushing. So great was his speed that his legs took the lead as they left him behind in East Flushing. There was a slow pig from Decatur, whose motto was, "I'll do it later." With the laziest slouch, he approached a soft couch where he twiddled his thumbs in Decatur. There was a stout pig from Oak Ridge, who stepped heavily onto a bridge. When she heard a loud creak, she cried, "Gad, but it's weak!" So she tiptoed the length of that bridge. There was a light pig from Montclair. Dressed in feathers, she floated on air. When the birds saw her frock, they called, "Come join our flock," which she did in the skies of Montclair. There was a smart pig who was able to make use of his three-legged table. He accomplished this trick, standing stiff as a stick, to be leg number 4 of that table. There was a pale pig from Spokane, who elected to lie in a pan. There she baked in the sun from high noon until 1, getting very well done in Spokane. There was a fat pig from Savannah who set foot on a peel of banana. As he came crashing down, every person in town thought an earthquake was shaking Savannah. There was a strange pig in the park, whose behavior was odd after dark. When the full moon appeared, he grew fangs and a beard, which alarmed all the folks in the park. There was a small pig from Woonsocket, who kept frogs and toads in his pocket. When his dear mother scolded, those fellows unfolded to jump on her hat in Woonsocket. There was a young pig by a cradle, who was feeding her babe with a ladle. The broth reached his shin when she spooned too much in, so she taught him to swim in that cradle. There was a sick pig with a cold, whose discomforts could not be controlled, for he sneezed into pieces his 2 favorite nieces, which grieved that sick pig with a cold. There was a young pig from Moline, whose botanical interests were keen. He planted his socks in a bright window box, and they blossomed there, flowery and green. There was an old pig with a pen, who had finished his work once again. Then he quietly sat with his comfortable cat, while he rested his brushes and pen. If you search on YouTube for Frog and Toad Are Friends, 1985, you'll find a little short film, and the voice of the narrator on that film is Arnold Lobel, the man who wrote all of these Pigericks. Here is a recipe for how to write a limerick. Although you've heard so many of these silly Pigericks, you probably know how to do them already. You should try to do at least a couple. Arnold Lobel is very well known for working with other members of his family to create children's literature. He did write the Frog and Toad books, and he won a Caldecott Award in 1981 for a book called Fables. It is well worth looking for. This was The Book of Pigericks by Arnold Lobel.